Welcome. Thank you for joining us here at KNX. Our special guest today is Christian Kiefel, who is the CEO of Pro KNX. Now, Pro KNX has been, involved in technology and innovation for some time and has products like the Aragon, the offline video control in a wall-mounted switch box. So we're very happy to have Christian here with us today to talk about some of the innovations, and he's going to talk today about KNX IoT, connectivity, security, and automation. Christian, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, I'm Christian Kiefel from Pro KNX. I have a company. I've created the company already in 2007. And today we are working a lot with IoT equipment. So I think it's quite interesting to give you some thoughts, perhaps from our side, what you should use or not use in the IoT world. Well, let's start with my little presentation. So I'd like to give you some thoughts about KNX IoT, as we are working a lot of these units, of these devices. First, let's start with KNX with IoT in general. IoT that are connected together, IoT that are connected to the internet. And its first point is even the IoT as a misnomer that I wanted to cover a little bit, because it has nothing to do with internet. It's just a name that has been developed like that. That's our first part. And the second part, I will talk about the KNX infrastructure together with IoT, without IoT, and the possibilities that we have now to connect in a very nice way to IoT systems. So let's start with Internet of Things, IoT, things that are connected through the internet or not. At least it's really a misnomer. That means IoT things are not necessarily connected to the internet. They are connected together, but it's not necessarily connected to internet. And that's very important to know, because you can use IoT also without internet connection. So let's start with a very simple presentation of or installation of IoT. You have a bulb, you have a switch and a plug, and you can connect them together. You can connect the switch to the bulb and to the plug to use them for switching, for scenes. And yes, then the next point is you can even include a hub. A hub may also communicate them all together. You can rename them. You have a lot of possibilities to use scenes in a comfortable way. So that's the way that the Internet of Things are talking together. In this way, by the way, it's not talking through Ethernet. Normally they are using some kind of radio protocol to communicate together. The advantages like that is it is really easy to install. You have a high security because you're really off the internet, and you have some disadvantages because these units are mostly battery driven, especially the switches, and they need to be serviced. In functionality, it's a bit limited also. So that's a very simple way how to connect these devices together. Let's see, it's limited connectivity we have also. Let's see another way now. We are connecting this hub to a router, and the router is then connected to the service provider. That's an installation. I think you already have seen it in several households. Very typical for Philips Hue devices. They are connected like that. So you have a hub which is from this service provider, and this is then connected to the service provider. You have also the possibility now to connect this whole installation to your phone, and that's a way now that you have even remote access to your home installation. As you can see here, so we have additionally advantage of remote access. You have already now a moderate functionality, and some disadvantages because now you need an internet account. And the battery driven is still available. Okay, then you have moderate security now, because this system needs to have even a connection from outside, otherwise it will not work, especially if you have the outside connection for remote access. A very important thing is you get now a dependency on the IoT manufacturer. That means if the IoT manufacturer will stop his work, if he will stop his server, then you will have problems to use your IoT devices anymore. So that's one point that you always have to consider. If you're using a device that needs an internet account, then you are dependent on the IoT manufacturer. If he closes down his duty, his work, his company, then you cannot use your equipment anymore. Then additionally, of course, you are also dependent on the internet connectivity, because if the internet is not available, then you cannot use it anymore. So some points you have to consider, always like that. You have some big advantages because it's really easy to install, but some disadvantages, that is really a dependency on these devices and on this manufacturer. The next type of installation is now that you add voice control. So everybody knows this device, it's an Alexa Dot, and the Alexa Dot is, you can connect it directly into your Wi-Fi network at home, and then you can add some types of skill. The skill server is then also a different server in the internet that is needed to use these devices that you have at home. Now, if you are using your Alexa, then you're saying, please turn on the kitchen light. The kitchen light is just here, that's a bulb above. And then the data stream is going to the service provider first. The service provider from Amazon is saying, hey, it's not me that should turn on or turn off the light. It is the skill that is installed. And so he forwards this information to the skill server. The skill server now brings directly the command to the bulb through your internet router. So you see it's a rather difficult or long way from the Alexa Dot to the service provider, to the skill server, and then to the bulb again. You can have more equipment like that, more such devices, more such Internet of Things, such like the thermostat or vacuum cleaner. All these things are each time you will need a skill server that you have to add to your Amazon account. And of course, you can even do it even better. You can do automation now. You can use automation services in the internet to use, for example, in this case, I've done here, I've showed a shutter, and the shutter may be closed or opened according to the sun position. So all this is possible, but you need internet, and all this information is done, or all this automation is done also in the internet and through the internet. Now, one point that is very important to see here, you have a very high dependency. You have a lot of skilled servers that are necessary to do all these jobs. You have an automation server that is necessary. And if one of these servers don't work anymore, if it shuts down, or if the manufacturer says, hey, I don't do any more of these things, I will now close down my company, then your Internet of Things, your device will not work any longer. That's a very important thing. I think it's necessary to see these things. If you add a skill to your Alexa account, each time you add a dependency to another company, and you add a dependency also to get into your house. Let's see it in the advantage and disadvantage table again. You have now a remote access, you have a really high functionality, high comfort, of course, with this voice control. The voice assistants are extremely cheap. Well, that's another point. And then the disadvantages are that you need now several internet accounts because every skill server, every skill needs an account. You have mostly battery-driven devices. You have now limited security because the security that you might think you have is now dependent on all the different servers from the outside. Every skill server has to leave the port open for Alexa so that Alexa can do the command. That means the responsibility for the skill server that is on the manufacturer side, the responsibility is it's not an Amazon side, it's a manufacturer. So if the manufacturer closes down his company, if there's someone who might use this data for outside, then it's your data, it's your connection to your home, and you have to be aware about that. So then you are dependent on the manufacturer that we covered already, and you're dependent on the internet connectivity. There's also another issue that might be interesting for installers. There's always the silent update that might change in your installation, because if there is a silent update, then this will change the installation that you have done. May change. It might be better, but it might be also worse. Yeah, and then you know the whole story about privacy, about recorded voices from Alexa, from Google. That's another point, but not necessary to cover this here. If you see, we go back again afterwards to the whole installation, the system system will be very difficult. It will be really dependent on the one who has done the system, who has installed all these different devices. And if there's a modification, then it's really dependent mostly on the person, because he has to have all this documentation about all these products, these different products. And just imagine if you change the internet router to another one, I'm not sure that the whole system will just work out of the box as it is installed before. Yes, see it again here, the whole installation. If you change the internet router, you see all these connections that are done through the internet router. I think it's, I would not say that it will work out of the box again. Now, one more point, you have one more possibility also where internet connection is really essential, because until now we covered only points that possibly could be done also locally. Now we are covering prediction. Prediction is a very interesting point of view, and that's very interesting for IoT and for the whole internet connection of the system. Prediction can be done only in the internet because it's depending mostly on big data, on data collecting, on machine learning, on artificial intelligence. And so here I have a simple example that is for watering. Watering irrigation system is dependent on the weather forecast, for example. So if you know that tomorrow, or if the system will know that tomorrow there will be rain, then the watering can be stopped. Your flowers will not be watered today, as anyway tomorrow it will rain. That's a very interesting way how to use internet, the advantage of the capability of internet computation. Well, now again, the final view on the disadvantages and advantages table. You have a very big advantage, that's resource saving. I talked about the irrigation system, but there are a lot of more possibilities, especially nowadays with energy saving. We have a lot of possibilities to use this common compute power with a lot of with the whole grid, at least with the whole smart grid, the smart cities. Now let's go to the KNX World. KNX World can be done very similar that with products that we have seen before. We have also plugs, we have lamps, we have shutters, we have thermostat and switches, and all these are connected together. And if you see it like that, it's already an installation of Internet of Things, because IoT does not mean a connection to Internet. It means just they're connected together and they have a certain intelligence. And that's exactly the case on KNX. KNX, every product has its own intelligence and they are all connected together. And you have one wonderful tool that enables the configuration of all these systems together. That's called ETS. And that's very interesting because this only one tool, it allows now to configure the whole system. You don't have simple systems that you have to configure every time. Here you have really one software that's configuring every unit, every device. So that's also infrastructure without internet connection. We have advantages. We have also, like the first time, high security, high functionality now, because these systems, these devices are working perfectly together. They have a compatibility that you can trust. You can just join them together electrically, and then you can configure them. You have a very big product variety. I think you know about more than 7,000 products for KNX that are certified, and you're not dependent on the manufacturer. There are more than 500 manufacturers today, and you can even exchange these products as you like. The disadvantage perhaps is that you need an installation. A system integrator, that's something that most or some people will not like, but at least you see you have a lot of advantages out of that. We will cover even more now. Yes, up to now we have some kind of limited connectivity third-party product, but that will change in the next pictures. So now we put it to the local internet. So we have a KNX infrastructure and have an internet router, and we can connect it now to the gateway to the Ethernet. And with the Ethernet, we have then the possibility also to control it by smartphone or by other devices with Wi-Fi, tablets, and so on. So now we have the same advantages and disadvantages as before, but additionally remote access also, because now we can access through internet, through VPN to our installation. I'd like now to cover also one point that we are doing, Aragon. We can use Aragon as an offline voice control unit in the home. And the advantage of Aragon is that it's really working locally. You don't have to have internet connection, and all that is said at home, it will stay at home. Aragon will read out the configuration automatically from different servers, like our ProServe that is shown here, but also servers like the Gira X1, the Young Smart Visa server, the Gira Home server, and you can use also just a normal KNX IP gateway. Well, this is Aragon, and you have the advantages now that you had before, but additionally high comfort. The privacy is not the same as we have seen before with Alexa. Here we have really complete privacy because everything that is said stays at home. Nothing is recorded. And there are no silent updates. Of course, you can have updates, but the updates has to be triggered manually. Now we cover also one more point, and now it's getting very interesting. That's the prediction. So we can also have the prediction from internet, and that's now one of the new features that we have on KNX side. That's the IoT third-party API. This API opens now the KNX World to other IoT devices, to IoT protocols with a standardized API. And that's a very nice feature, because now you can use this service for prediction also for KNX, for example. And this opens now smart grid, smart city, or what is also very interesting is the preventive maintenance. Because now if you have a building, office building, or bigger installations with several homes, then you can predict what kind of systems will have to be serviced, where you can do preventive maintenance. Of course, you have also the weather forecast that you can use, or the traffic, and then you can have all these possibilities also for watering irrigation systems, or for smart grid, for the balance of power consumption. You can share the energy as it's necessary. All these advantages you have now with this IoT API that can be used by other third parties. So again, here we have all the advantages that we had before, and now additionally this high connectivity, which is really a very, very nice feature that we will have in future with KNX. Yes, I've made these examples already for resource saving, energy, water, and traffic, and so on. Well, that's about my thoughts of IoT world and the KNX world, that can be combined together in a way that is really interesting. Well, I said, of course, also something about our products, because IoT is interesting, but it's even better if, or you should always think about it's always necessary to connect to the internet, to have some additional functions, or isn't it also possible to use it already at home? Automation mostly can be done at home, but there are some things that can be done outside, and this is now the big advantage that we have with KNX API, of the IoT API. Thank you very much. This was my thoughts about that, and I leave to Bob now again.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you very much. Thanks for that panoramic tour of connection scenarios. I found it very useful, and I thought it highlighted very well your recommendation that the interplay between IoT and KNX encourages us to limit IoT cloud usage only to the purpose of prediction, AI, and machine learning. It, as you say, stay at home, so to speak. So that's good. But let's, I have a few questions or things that I'd like to discuss, and one of them revolves around cloud-based automation. Is that much more powerful than locally based automation, or not?
I think you have always to distinguish what has to be done. In a household or in office buildings, I think about 90% of automation can be done even in the house. You don't have to have everything in the internet. These internet servers, they have a lot of information, they have a lot of compute power, and they have a lot of big data, and machine learning is possible, but there are a lot of automation functions that you can do at home, and only few of them are very interesting to use also in the internet.
Okay, but that seems to be, to make sense to me. And what about privacy? When you're selling the KNX automated IoT home, is it possible to delete or to initialize privately created data?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. KNX from itself, it has no data storage for privacy. So if you sell one time your home, then you can sell your home without problems if it's a KNX home. Now, when when you have IoT devices installed, then you have to take care about all of these private internet accounts that you have installed and that you have to manage, especially these accounts for voice control. I think that's rather difficult. You have really to reinitialize all these accounts, and then you have to reinstall at least all the home appliances, because if you have to reinitialize them, then you have to reinstall them. And that's a very critical point. So if you have just a system like KNX and perhaps also some offline voice control, then you don't care about it, because there's no data stored in these devices. Everything is just immediately deleted.
I think a lot of people are going to like that feature of keeping your privacy and keeping it in the home. But I saw that your online assistant, Aragon, as an IoT participant in the slides, but is it also able to use the new KNX IoT third-party API?
Yes, that's also an interesting point. I mentioned already that we are doing that we can read out automatically these servers like the KNX1, Gira Home servers, even Smart User server, and our server. And well, now we have included also the KNX IoT third-party API, which allows us now in a standardized way to connect to the system. And that's very interesting, because now we don't have to do every time a new server API. Now we can use a standardized API to connect to the KNX system, and it's very interesting for us, and also for our customer at least.
Yeah, I think that showed in your panoramic view of these scenarios. And so let's close on this question. Why is IoT connectivity a great feature for KNX?
Yes, I think KNX has to be open for these kind of questions. We have to be open, especially for the balance of the power consumption. We have to be open to share the energy correctly. We have to be open for, yes, when we're charging our cars, that we're using the energy at the time when it's available and not when we have a high demand on energy. So it's really a very important point that KNX is open for that, and that's now possible. With this IoT API, there is a possibility to connect to KNX in a standardized way, and that's really done in a way so that the IoT engineer will understand it also. So I think that's the reason it's really a great step now.
All right. Well, thank you very much. This is Christian Kiefel, who is the CEO of KNX, joining us today talking about KNX IoT, connectivity, security, and automation. Christian, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Bob, too. Yeah, thanks. Bye.